You are at the Almighty Church of Rock. GEZA X on the phone. We're going to talk to him in about 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. GEZA, how are you, man?
Reverend, so nice to be on.
Finally, I've been dying to talk to you.
I love your illustrious background and history, buddy.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were even aware of it, to be honest.
You're a legend.
Well, you're the legend. That's why you're on the show tonight.
Oh, I know.
So, let me start the interview with asking you, who was the last band that you produced?
Let me see. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I can't remember. I've been doing a lot of reissues. I've been mastering mostly, and I've been mixing. So I just mixed a band called 1983, and I've been remastering the entire Posh Boy catalog, like just a whole 30 years worth of stuff. The list is phenomenal, from like UXA, Social Distortion. I mean, God, it's like I can't even begin to tell you the list. It's like, like we just did about 150, 200 songs. He's got a really big catalog, Posh Boy Records.
Yeah, so it's like a who's who of like early punk rock.
Yeah, for me, just to touch some of these records, the Nuns and stuff. I did, I produced the Nuns several years back for Posh Boy Records, and it was a compilation, but it was also a lot of newer stuff, from our beautiful ice princess, Jennifer Miro.
Oh, yeah.
Who I believe is dead now, sadly. But she was a lovely creature and had some really extraordinary pop songs that I got a chance to record. But what happened was they got crushed in mastering. Posh Boy was using a really inexpensive German mastering house, and they ruined everything that he put through there. So what we did was we went back to the original masters and remastered it so that you could hear what was going on, because the stuff that came out of Germany was so tinny it was literally unlistenable.
Wow. I've got to interrupt to do our legal ID, Geza. You are listening to KSKQ 89.5 FM Ashland, Oregon, and KSKQ translator K231CW 94.1 FM Medford, Oregon. We are talking with legendary musician and producer GEZA X. And we were talking about the Nuns. You know what song I like by that band? I like that song called Do You Want Me on My Knees?
Oh, my God, with Josie Cotton. That was done with Jennifer and Josie. Josie was my girlfriend at the time, and we went up there during the recordings, and I said, hey, there was this one song, and I saw the lyrics, and I was going, wow, why don't you guys do a duo? And Jennifer said, sure. So it's like, Jennifer's on the left and Josie's on the right, and they're going back and forth, and at the end they go like this together.
I did not.
And Josie Cotton has just gotten active again. She suddenly appeared out of literally nowhere.
Well, she was
4 albums.
Yeah, she was on the show
page and everything.
Well, she was on with us, I guess maybe 5 weeks ago. She was on with us.
Oh, right on. Yeah, she's been really, really out there, just jamming.
Yeah, and that one record, the B side, the B movie soundtrack that she has recorded. That's
Invasion of the Bee People.
It's so genius.
Oh my God, she's so clever that way, because she draws on all of this kind of '60s iconology,
Yeah. I have a very big listener of this show that's a big fan of yours, and he got a hold of me, and he said, look, I've been dying to hear a GEZA X interview on the Church of Rock, and he wanted me to ask you about the goal and the whole deal with the Silver Chalice band that you had back in the day.
All right. Well, that's an amazing story, because it's really very rarely been told. We did basically one excellent single called Wasted, and then we did an EP that was pretty good too. The EP had Don Bowles and Rob Graves on it. To Kim Comet's credit, Kim Comet started the band. He's the lyricist and the singer, and he's the crazy guy that used to drink a bottle of Wesson oil on stage and pull his pubes out with pliers, and we did a lot of pretty hilarious shows that way. It was sort of our guilty pleasure. Everybody who was in punk liked hard rock too, but of course that was illegal. So Silver Chalice kept cropping up in all of our lives. But I was one of the first to join. I put an ad in Rolling Stone magazine literally in 1970, and it said, "Shitty lead guitarist seeks uncoordinated macrobiotic Martian mutants who play rotten music." And Kim Comet, the singer of Silver Chalice, answered, and he came down to LA with he lived in, this guy was like Johnny B. Good. You would not believe it. I don't even know where he is right now, but he was like Johnny B. Good. He lived in an adobe hut that was built by his dad, and after his dad built it, the stress of building this little shack in the mountains in Santa Cruz kind of killed him, and he died. So his mother went schizophrenic and started seeing all of these Christian symbols in all of these weird places like license plates and stuff like that. So that he grew up sort of like in an environment kind of like that movie Carrie.
Yeah. Wow.
And, they were very deep into the occult and stuff. And so what happened was, he came down to LA with like a suitcase full of song lyrics that were like scribbled on scraps of paper, and I was looking at him, and this guy was just like as weird as anything, but I liked him, right? We became just best friends for like the next 30 years. And so I went up to where he lived and lived with him for 2 years up there with his mom and him, and in the adobe house, and we froze to death. There was a smaller cabin off to the side that didn't have any windows, and we literally had all of these winters with like snow and no windows. I mean, I was too stupid to put plastic up, so I was pretty drug damaged in those days. It was about 1971, and Kim started to tell me his vision of this, Gnostic Christian rock band. But him and his mom, they were so steeped in the occult. They had a fantastic library of occult literature, and Madame Blavatsky and stuff like that. And it was his mom who taught me all about megavitamins. She had cured herself of cancer with like herbs and all of that. So anyways, it was a weird situation, and I stayed there for about 2 years. And Kim and I wrote a bunch of song lyrics. His idea was that he wanted to find these artifacts, kind of like what Hitler was trying to do, which was to find these Christian artifacts, and that supposedly if you collect the whole set, you can rule the world.
Oh, wow. So that was the goal of the band?
I went for it hook, line, and sinker, and what was interesting was the band never saw the light of day. We played a few gigs. We played one monster gig with the Chili Peppers at Oscar's Cornhusker in West Covina. And that was like probably one of our biggest gigs that ever happened. But the Silver Chalice, among those who know, it's kind of a mini legend because, Don Bowles from the Germs, he adores it. Don Bonebreak, from X, played drums with us for a while. We collected quite a few people. Terry Churchman was a regular. He played guitar in that sort of like open E, a few people that play guitar in open E, they learn their chords all differently, and it has a very ringing, sonorous kind of tone. So Terry Churchman, and then gosh, who else? There was Paul Ferris, played bass for a while. I played bass for a while, and of course I was one of the two guitar players. So, we made it to LA as the Silver Chalice, but I had already started a career with like the Bags and the Deadbeats and my own band. And so Silver Chalice was kind of like I said, kind of our dirty heavy metal pleasure trip,
And you did that one single in 79?
We did one single called Wasted, which I think was our best piece. And then we also did a EP of 5 songs, and that turned out really well. And that had Don Bowles and Rob Graves, who from 45 Grave, and of course the Germs, playing bass and drums on there, and that was really a good record too.
BAM magazine once said that GEZA X is the only person to capture the West Coast's compelling power and urgency, and you went on to produce records by Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, Germs, Red Cross, the Weirdos, the Avengers. How did you become so iconic, man?
It's like It was a small community in those days. In the early punk days, there were only like about 30 of us, and then like kind of the first wave happened. Maybe the 30 turned into 300 at Whiskey A Go Go and all the clubs like that.
And the Mask.
And the Mask, of course. Yeah, I lived at the Mask, and so I started spreading the word that I was a producer. I'd never actually produced any records. I'd engineered a few, but I came out of basically sleeping on the floor of a recording studio that was ironically right across the street from what became the Masks, and so I just kind of moved all my gear across the street and slept on the floor of the Mask, and that's where I lived for a while before the Canterbury opened. So, we started having illegal shows that were these bring your own beer type shows, and all of the cool kids that were starting punk rehearsed at the Mask. It was basically a rehearsal place originally. It was about 4 rehearsal rooms. So, I used to set up the PA for those. And then when we started running bootleg shows, I started spreading, I was doing the sound for those because I had some sound gear and Brendan had some sound gear, and I had this magical way of being able to tape together like really, really cheap PAs and make them sound like one big, better, slightly cheap PA. So, when we started doing shows, this stage at the Mask, it was a joke. It was 4 inches high, literally, off the ground.
Yeah.
So when we started doing shows at the Mask, I started spreading the word that I was a record producer, and, Darby Crash, who was, kind of a trendsetter in those days, he walked up to me one day and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You a producer, produce the Germs." And I was like, wow, that would be wonderful. Who's doing it? And they said, well, Slash Records Slash Magazine is putting it out. It wasn't even Slash Records yet.
Wow.
And I was like, Slash, wow, Slash and the Germs and me, what a combo. And Don Bowles had just arrived from Arizona, but he hadn't joined the band yet, so he was doing a rehearsal. We were rehearsing for the single. And for the EP, the 3-song EP, No God, Lexicon Devil and all that. And Don Bowles got a chance during one of the breaks. Nicky Bede was the drummer on the first EP, but Don Bowles got a chance to audition, and then Darby, pulled me out of the room after the audition, and he said, well, what'd you think? Since I was their new producer, I had a vote, and I said, anybody that comes from Arizona specifically to be in the Germs should be, because he's gonna make his own legend out of this thing,
Yeah,
he certainly did.
And he's still, and Don Bowles he's still a genius, man.
He's one of our favorite people, honestly, in the world. He is so multi-talented. People don't even know all this stuff. He writes. He's a good writer. He does this electronica stuff that is like just this weird space electronica.
And fancy space people too.
The most obscure records ever made.
Yeah, we worked with him a couple times, and Don has been cool enough to be on the show several times. And Ariel Pink has been on the show, and those guys kind of stop through here whenever they go up to like Portland. So we usually the one to kind of hang out and smoke them out or whatever when they're coming through here, Southern Oregon. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Good dudes, man.
Ariel Pink is a really, really interesting band because they are a kind of a high quality pop band with a lot of I guess you could say almost like orchestral styling, like that band The Association back in the day. I always thought that style was kind of like almost like the squarest sort of like vocal music for pop radio in those days, and yet now it's experiencing this kind of like charming retro kind of return, and a lot of acts are going that route, which is what you might call very mainstream pop, but in a new era.
Yeah, it's like a resurgence. Hey, GEZA, Sister Tracy has a question that she likes to ask most of our guests, and I think it would be cool to ask you this. You want to ask him?
Well, yeah, I just, I often wonder when I'm talking to people who have spent, most of their lives working within the music industry, if you could go back and do everything all over again and not be working in the music industry, what do you think you would have done? What career do you think you would have chosen?
Well, my dad was a rocket scientist, like a real rocket scientist.
For real?
Like NASA, and he figured out the trajectories of all of these, like, the Mars mission and the
No.
Pioneer probe and all. Yeah, the MX missiles. It was like he was on all of the orbits. He designed the orbits of all of those things.
Wow.
And I was sort of earmarked to follow in his footsteps as a scientist. I could have been a scientist. I'm very, very scientific, but the thing is that I had a learning defect, and nobody knew it at the time. Learning disability. I can't do math. I can't even do math. I have to count to this day, I'm 66, I have to count on my fingers. I cannot multiply. What a weird problem.
Wow.
Because I'm smart, I swear,
We know.
That's so crazy that your dad was a rocket scientist.
And I had ADHD really, really bad. So I wasn't able to concentrate. I was always daydreaming. I was always getting in trouble at school. All my whole school history is just like me in trouble. So basically, I was punk before punk in a way because, I got, how you can just completely, get sick of what you're growing up with because none of it works for you.
Sure.
And so that's what happened. I didn't even know I was a rebel. I just couldn't hack it. And I had to go my own way. So I always loved music. I was able to name every piece of classical music by the time I was 4. And, from a very, very early age, I liked music. And I also liked knobs and gadgets. So there was this, thing called the recordio that my family had, and the recordio it was everything. It was like a PA, it was like a tape recorder. It could make records, literally cut records.
Wow.
It could play back records at 78 RPM, okay?
Wow.
and so it was like this do everything box, and when I was little, I just wanted to get my hands on it so bad. So I think that the love of knobs and gadgets was with me at a very early age. But if I would have gone in a different direction, and since science wasn't really available to me, I still study science on my own on YouTube and stuff because I love it.
I'm totally into that. That's one of my hobbies.
But if I had probably the choice would have been filmmaking and photography.
Oh, cool choice.
Because and I do a lot of photography to this day. Some people don't know that, but I post lately. I've only started on Instagram not that long ago, a few months ago, but I started posting some of my artworks, which are altered photographs, and I love it. It's so much fun to do. But I've been doing that for ages, and done quite a few art shows. I've been in some shows with large canvases that are giclées, that are printed out on canvas from my altered photoshopped photographs.
Interesting. We don't have much time left, but we'd like to know what's next for GEZA X. What's coming up for you in the immediate future, and how can people reach you if they want to?
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I started modeling recently. My wife has been a model all her life, professionally, but somebody tapped me to try it. I mean, I've been on both sides of a camera most of my life, but I started to do a couple of gigs, and I really liked it. It's like, at my age, it's like, setting up sessions in a recording studio or even mixing. I think I'm just burnt out on the studio. I still master discs. I mean, I still do disc mastering, indie style, inexpensively, $30 a song, because I love to be the first person that hears a new song. And so, I've just kept that line open so people can reach me and they can, get something mastered by GEZA X. I'm good at that. I can do it pretty much anywhere on a computer, on a laptop computer, so it doesn't hold me back. But the modeling has been just a joy. I've got a lot of stuff now on Instagram, and I'm starting to get gigs. I'm really enjoying that, just because it's a different thing. I'm hoping I'll get a chance to travel. And you can Instagram me at GEZA with 2 X's, GEZA XX. And you can email me at GEZA Records, GEZA Records, just like what it sounds like, GEZA Records at gmail.com.
Well, thank you so much for accommodating our flexible schedule. We had to cancel at one point, but you worked with me. I really appreciate talking with you. I wish we had a lot more time, and maybe down the road we could do a part 2. And I really appreciate it, GEZA.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, GEZA.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the evening, and may you live long and prosper.
cool. Thank you very much.
It's GEZA X, ladies and gentlemen. I can't clap because my hands are full. I would clap for you. I've got the clap, I do, I swear. GEZA, thank you, man.
All right. I'm going to head out. Can I give a shout out to the first single that I released on my label?
I wish you would.
It's called Lady Moon and the Eclipse. And they have a beautiful website, ladymoonandtheeclipse.com. And you can also see their record or buy it on GEZAXrecords.com.
And because of our technical difficulties tonight, next week we will be playing not only the classic Isotope Soap song, we're also going to do some Silver Chalice in honor of GEZA X next week.
Jamming. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for the history and thanks for taking the time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Cheers. There you have it, my friends. GEZA X, another legend on the Church of Rock.